Hi, Lisa. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Vivek. How are you doing?
Not bad, not bad. Doing well. And thank you, as always, to being a collaborative mind to discuss ideas in this future of workspace. And
Yeah,
those who are watching, I did put out a kind of a teaser note a week back on LinkedIn, but this is an occasion where I can introduce how this conversation began between me and Lisa. What is the idea behind it? Then probably Lisa will introduce herself. Then I would try to chip in a bit about me.
yeah,
We've had many such conversations, I recollect, and it's an ongoing thing. A lot of brainstorming, a lot of interactions in what's happening in the career space and the future of work. But I felt like there's a lot of value or insights which people can take from there, and especially from things which are churning out from the discussions. So good, we are doing this as a format. So yeah, to begin with, I think the story begins in winter 2025, I can say, right out of Conestoga, finishing my project management 1 year study as a newcomer to Canada and was into the job market in the initial day. As of, I could sense kind of a challenge which I could feel. And I think you would understand it, Lisa, better. We have spoken about it and you know how it is out here, even a year back or in 2025. That's when I started working out on a product idea, which is in the career space, helping job seekers and hiring managers, make a very concrete and solid connection without being related to job boards and without depending on the traditional methods. And I had the opportunity to be meet you at the time because I was doing subject matter expert interviews, and you were one of those people who were open to listen to what I was trying to perceive as a product concept, and a lot of insights out of the discussions. And cut to year 2026,
yep,
after spending about a year part of an early stage AI company, helping them in the strategic growth side, I kind of felt there has been some, drastic transition in how career is shifting. And like always, I just knocked on your door. I said, like, hey Lisa, would you like to converse? And you were open to that. You came up with the way you were looking at the space, and that's where we are at. And thank you, Lisa, for that. And I think these conversations are going to bring a lot of good insights for people who are listening to it. So I would like to listen from you, like on about you and how you find as we converse on this topic.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I do remember having the conversation sort of initially back, in 2025. And I was like, well, have you thought about this? And have you thought about this? And have you thought about that? And I made some referrals to a few other folks. And I know that you followed
Yes.
up on those folks as well. And then in January, you reached out and you were like, hey, have you heard of this thing called fractional? And I'm like, yes, I have. And I said, it's something that I'm hearing more about. Let's talk again so that we can talk, so we can kind of like figure out what is it that we're talking about. And our conversations became, rather interesting. We met at the coffee shop. We talked a little bit about, how things are evolving in terms of AI and how things are evolving also, just in the hiring space. Like, how do you find and hire people in the age of AI, right? So it became kind of an interesting conversation. And of course, the future work is really interesting for me. Just to give you a little bit of my background, I started out in careers back in 1990 something when I was a university student. I was a first gen student, which meant that nobody in my family had ever gone to post secondary before. I was navigating all of this on my own. And I thought for sure that I was going to become a high school teacher. And I didn't get into teachers college and I didn't know what to do. So I went to the Career Center at York University. I've actually shared this story recently at a conference that I presented at. And I wandered in and I was like, I don't know what else to do. Like, I don't know what to do. I was very lost. And so the woman, her name was Kathy Campbell. She was, I think, the manager of the career center at York. And she said to me, "Well, that's okay. I'll give you some of these vocational tests. And I mean, kind of figure out what you should do, and you can kind of
Right.
go from there." And I was like, "But I don't have any money." And she said, "That's okay." She said, "Actually, you can volunteer for me." And so I did actually. I spent the next year volunteering for her in the Career Center at York.
Mhm.
And I loved it. I loved everything that I was doing. I'm pretty sure that those vocational tests said that I should be a real estate salesperson, which that is just so not me. But I did like helping people. I did like teaching, and so I that was sort of my early career experience. I did eventually have to find a job to get paid, and I actually went into the call center industry because in Canada it was still fairly big before they started to do a sort of an offshoring. So they sent all of the call centers to different places around the world and they kind of offshore them. But I always wanted to stay in the field. So at some point in time, I decided to go back to school. This kind of gets a little bit fuzzy, but I decided to go back to school. I did the career development practitioner program, and and that was when I met people like Rob Straley and Kim Moore and a bunch of other people who are kind of in the field. I got a chance to learn from them. So I did the career development practitioner program. And then I spent quite a few years doing career support services in community. I was working with, unemployed people. I was working with youth. I was working with tradespeople. And all of the time, the sort of the thread of career was really, really important to me. I also was working at a post-secondary college, and I knew that eventually, if I wanted to sort of move around or gain more credibility within the institution, that I would need to go back to school and get a master's degree. So I did that as well. And so I kind of feel like I went back to school like every 10 years. I went back to
Yeah,
school.
you did like a reverse engineering study.
Yeah, so I did my undergraduate sort of in my early 20s, and then my 30s I did my career development practitioner program,
Yeah.
and then in my 40s, I did my master's degree. So I have a master's degree in adult education. I went to the University of Calgary for that. I had three small children, a husband running a business. It was a bit of a crazy
I wouldn't be able to do it. I'll just walk away from such a thing.
Yeah, it was a full-time program, and I had a full-time job as well, so it was a bit of a crazy time. Anyways, and so eventually, just to kind of make this crazy twist and turny story really short, I eventually made my way back into a teaching role, and I became faculty at the college. I had started teaching in 2016, but in 2023 I moved to faculty and began teaching students most how to navigate the career space. And it was a bit tricky. I mean, it was helping students sort of understand how to manage their careers inside of the Canadian context. I started doing some consulting and really sort of finding my niche within that consulting space as well. And then you and I have decided to team up and really collaborate together on building this thing that really supports the changes to what we foresee is going to happen within the labor market in terms of hiring and also perhaps even skill development from an AI perspective. Like, what does this future of work really look like? And so
Yeah.
that's where our conversations really
Yeah, Lisa.
have flown from.
And as far as I remember, when you introduced me to a couple of your then students, but they were professionals in the career
That's right.
domain, I've heard from them about you, like, the way you used to help them navigate. And in my personal experience as well, when as a enthusiast building a product idea, year back it was different. You know it, like what we are doing now is different from what was in year back. But I think adapting to newer ideas and, kind of merging the wisdom of the past and the knowledge, expertise in the domain of career to how the shifts are making isn't easy. Many will kind of have walls of pre-notion. So that's been a lovely brainstorming and so far, and I'm glad that we are doing this because these conversations, which have been like just on in a coffee shop or a Google Meet or at a startup, a lounge. I mean, a community co-working space lounge is like has been between our notes, but this could be like a value-added insight for others. And just a quick intro on my end.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I was just going to ask, why don't you tell us more about your journey? Because I know your journey, has made its way over from like moving entirely your family, right, from one
yes,
place to another. So tell us more
true.
about that.
Yeah, like, the thing is like it's been about 18 years for me in the professional space, starting out in the sales partner relationship side in hospitality. But my interests, I don't know, I was inclined towards the tech from the time it started shaping out in India as startups came in late uh, 2015 and VCs started to support and the environment shifted. I transitioned because of my inquisitiveness towards that to
Whoa.
the hospitality tech space. I was fortunate to be part of a couple of you know, I wouldn't say like well funded. They were not funded at the time, but they were like with leaders, innovative leaders, founders who were open to, bring in people and take the risk. And I was also willing to take that risk. So I was leading the sales and marketing ground up, setting up team and building. And since my interest was towards the product, then bounced my set of thoughts on that and did take a plunge somewhere in the year 2016, 17 to build something of my own, like a productized version. It was a good exposure for me in the unknown space. And then I kind of, since the product wise, it was good, I got some positive feedback and everything. The market was giving me positive signals, but probably I wasn't prepared to scale it up on the financial side on my own. And I was very naive in the way how I could navigate the investment side. So I pivoted a bit. I moved into consulting and helping SMEs, helping startups in the go to market and business development side. Moving to Canada in that way is like where is like how sailors set out on some journey and there is a storm and you find a new island. So
Yeah.
I probably landed into Canada in that way, not like something which was on my bucket list for a long, but it happened. So I moved my family, like you said, along with me, did a study, and I was passionate about the tech space and the GTM side. I was fortunate to do a couple of projects as consultant and as well as the last role as a full-time employee. So that's been my career journey, but and I'm kind of now always believed in two aspects. I mean, maybe probably just been there part of me that innovative or creative thinking is something which kicks me, and that makes me curious and keep learning things. And probably it's coupled with another element of problem solving, like finding solutions. So I feel like tech in that way kind of has the potential of solving problems in a very amplified manner if it has the right knowledge or wisdom base. That's what people like you, when they come in and resonate to an idea, that kind of validates it and that can have amplified output. So that's about me. And yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Lisa,
yeah. I actually have a couple follow-up questions because I wanted to ask you, why did you choose Kitchener-Waterloo to kind of settle into? Was that like when you first came to Canada, was that the place? Like, or did you do the typical thing and land in Toronto or yeah, so tell me more about that part.
good question, Lisa. Thank you for putting that up because before moving in, it was like it's about study, where to study. People are focused on GTA, there's more job opportunities because of the belt and everything. But for me, tech was the priority one, and I had read quite a bit about Waterloo being the Bay Area of Canada. There's a lot of vibes of startups and acceleration happening on that side. The community is there, so that was one of the main reasons.
And the tech, I think potential is still very driven there. There might be some folks who don't know certain acronyms that you've used. So maybe let's unpack one. VC, venture capital, right?
Yes.
GTM. Why don't you explain what that one means?
Yeah,
GTM.
GTM is like a shorter term for go to market.
Okay.
It's like the newer terminology for an older thing. We can say earlier back in the days, if 10, 15 years back, because I as well started back then, GTM was not a thing which was popular in startups and corporates. We would call it like business development, right?
Okay.
The person who is coming to head the sales or the marketing is going to drive the product launch into the market. And there are pieces of market research, product research, competitor research, which is going to be the underlying principle to set up how you're
Yeah.
going to position the product
Yeah.
and who is the ideal customer persona and how would the marketing and the sales part merge together and work closely with the product team. So it used to happen then too, but it used to happen with different designations, very plain and simple. And eventually the terms have come up. There was growth hacking at one point of time, and now we had GTM, and the GTM as well is evolving further today. It's moving toward GTM engineering, where everything is automated and the systems are doing it. Like we will obviously talk on that topic, but
Yeah, exactly.
GTM is basically the go-to-market part.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What did your early days of hospitality teach you that you're using now? That's another question I've always wanted to ask you. I remember that you talked a little bit about sort of those early days of hospitality, and what is it teaching you? Like, what have you using now, right?
Wow. Good question again.
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting that to come.
I know. I'm sorry,
No, it's
but
okay.
I'm like,
Like,
it's a
it
great
makes me
question.
think. Yeah, makes me think. So, having studied hospitality in one of the most premier institutes in India, it's called Indian Institute of Hotel Management, and it's in the city of Bangalore. It's a number one or number two still among the top 10, 20 institutes there. And it is supported by the University of IGNO, which is a central government's university. So they have a reputation out there. Honestly, I was not that studious, as in like the bookish reader. I can't answer all the questions, the name of all the wines, the name of the 18 course French menu. I would be very bad at it. But I was more inclined towards, the extracurricular things probably the cultural events, organizing alumni meets, sports events, and participating in debate and jam sessions. And fortunately, one of our faculty directed me towards soft skill centric jobs, or event management, sales. I moved towards the events. That's how I entered the hotel industry. I worked for Accor, which is the second largest hotel chain globally in the event segment. I've managed multiple type of events in my early days. So what I learned, if you ask me, what I take still today, that's a very good point because one of the things which I feel hospitality taught me, especially in the events domain, is planning. I'm glad I started my career itself in that. It's like a full circle for me. I finished my study in project management, which is a formal way of doing planning, and my career started with a certificate from Accor in event management or event planning. So planning is something I still day every day. It's been pretty much useful. And the second most important would be being hospitable. I
Okay.
think I genuinely feel that is the most highly virtuous quality we could have. Kind of overlaps with being kind and stuff. So yeah, those are two things which I find to be like it's still adding value to me, and it is probably adding value to people whom I meet and I
Yeah.
interact with. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I have to think back to my early days being in the call center
right.
when all you have in terms of communication is the headset and it's audio, right? You have to listen so hard to what you have to do a lot of work to listen to what people are trying to say, right? So because they're calling, they're upset with something. Typically you're not calling because you're happy when you need to call into a call center, so you're upset. And so those listening skills have been so incredible for me to learn. But then I needed to also add to that a higher level of inferencing and understanding what is being said because most of my clients calling in would have been people calling in who were new Canadians or their first language wasn't English. So I had to tune myself to different accents, different modes of speech and what the
Nice.
person was actually saying and really to try to understand underneath what is being said. And I think that those skills really helped me in being able to have that cross cultural communication
Yeah.
because I had to spend a lot of time, like I said, really listening hard to what.
We spoke about the career side where you have been part. I think the career coaching side is something which we haven't touched upon. You did speak about how you did guide students and newcomers into the journey, but I think that you did beyond even the education part, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I take on clients from time to time. Last year, actually, not it wasn't last year, it was the year before. I did my organizational coaching certificate through the University of British Columbia. So I feel like every decade I just go back to
You
school.
upskilled yourself.
Yeah. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to formalize my knowledge of coaching and really understand like how I can become a better coach. And I also really like the idea of being able to coach within organizational contexts as well. So that was the reason why I did that program because was both coaching the individual. The first half of the program was coaching the individual. The second half was coaching organizations to achieve their goals. And so that was the main reason why I did that program. And it really taught me a lot. In fact, I know we're going to talk a little bit about agency in the next
Yes.
little while as a topic. So that's a bit of a teaser. But yeah, because that became a really important theme is coaching coaching while supporting an individual's agency became really important to me. It's like, it's recognizing that we all have skills, talents, and abilities. We can solve the majority of our own problems, but a coach will come alongside and simply ask provoking questions to support the thinking and even extend the thinking sort of beyond what their current frame might be, right? Because maybe an individual is thinking A, B, and C. And so as a coach, my job is to come up and say, like, hey, let's talk about some alternative things. Well, what about D, F, and L? I'm like, maybe those are options for you. And then really enabling to say, you know what, actually, yeah, you're right. D is not good, but L is actually a really good idea. Thank you for being able to kind of help kind of expand the thinking around what they might be able to do.